Welcome to the Planner of Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true Planner Pals. My name is Jess, or Jessie Corinne.
And I'm Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages. And today's episode I've been so excited for so long. It's all about community Q&A questions. We got questions from you, our Planner Pals, and Jess and I are going to be answering these questions today. And Jess, we got so many questions. It's amazing. I'm so excited to get into today's episode.
Yeah, I know, right? I was very impressed to see how much people wanted to know, and also maybe just a little bit intimidated. I can't say that I've gone through all the questions, so we're going to be having some very off-the-cuff answers here. But hey, that's the thing, right? We're giving you our true, unfiltered opinions. Hopefully it doesn't come out too rambly, especially for editing, Mark. Fingers crossed.
All right, so let's go ahead and get right into the questions. So our first question is actually from two individuals. They asked kind of a similar question here, Jess. If you had the chance to start over with bullet journaling, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would do differently? And then the second question is close, but if you would change anything about your YouTube or your bullet journal channel, is there anything you would change and why? So I'll let you go with that answer first.
Alrighty, let's start with the bullet journal question first. Okay, the one thing that I would change probably, if I had to just kind of confine it to one thing, I would just start in a notebook that had what I'm going to call better quality paper. Now, that's not to say that the LT 1917 is not a quality notebook, because it is. It's just that with the way that I like to plan, I prefer a thicker paper notebook, and I feel like I would have had a lot more kind of like joy in my starting kind of bullet journal journey if I was just using a notebook that had thicker paper. I know that in the community it wasn't as popular back then, so that is probably why I went with the LT 1917, but that would be the major change. What would be your one for bullet journaling?
For bullet journaling, I think what I would have done differently is I would have tried to explore my own style first. I feel like my first bullet journal was just kind of mimicking what I was already seeing online, which wasn't completely useful for me. And I just felt like that's what we had to do. So I would have spent a lot more time kind of just using my bullet journal for what I needed versus what I thought I needed.
No, that's a great point. I know that my first bullet journal is effectively like, is this just boho berry from New Zealand? Oh dear. What would be your change about your YouTube content creating-esque kind of side of things?
So I think what I would have changed about that is I would have brought myself to my YouTube channel earlier. So when I first started YouTube for the first year and a half, it was strictly just my bullet journal, because I was, one, a bit nervous about being on camera because I had never been in front of a camera before. My background has always been in radio and radio production, so I could talk all day long, but the face and showing and talking was totally different. But once I did that, I realized that it was super fun to do. It was a really just a learning curve, but I learned about it and got better as I went along. And I think a lot of those insecurities and uncertainties early on is what held me back. But once I just started doing it, I haven't turned back, for better or for worse. How about yourself?
Oh gosh, I think it was just being able to like tell past Jess, like, you can take a breath. You don't have to the entire thing out. Like, we have the editing ability to like cut pieces out. You can say things multiple times if you want. I still do. But I found that like trying to do the voiceovers and the recording of my voice and stuff, I sounded so timid and so shy, and I just wanted to get everything right. And like I still want to get things right, and that's why I record things multiple times. But listening back to the way that past Jess used to talk, she used to take these like really big pauses and she wouldn't take them out, and she made this little like rabbit noise, I swear, like at the end of all of her sentences, and it's so frustrating to listen to. But I think that, yeah, that's just one of the things that you get over time, like as you build up confidence, like camera confidence or whatever. But I like your point about bringing yourself to your channel, because that's how you build community and that's how you connect with people too. So that's cool.
And it's funny that you mentioned about doing those takes and taking your time. I still, if I get through a video and mess up, especially like my intro, I get to a point, I'll re-record the whole thing. And I've gotten to the end of videos before too, where I was like, I don't know if I love that. And then I just re-record the whole thing again, like once through, because I've basically already practiced it at this point. So even I did that way early on, and I still even do it now. It's just a part of my process, I guess.
It's always such a pain though when that re-recording kind of thing isn't like by choice. It's because like, oh, I forgot to like turn my light on properly, or things are misaligned, or the microphone wasn't on. You're just, there's like you said, like, you got the practice in, so it usually goes smoother the second time. But you miss all of those like really kind of natural discovery moments and stuff, and it's like, let's just put it on for the camera because I have to do it again.
Yeah, there's a lot of movie magic that happens when we make these YouTube videos, that's for sure.
We had a couple of questions about fountain pens, so I figured we'd put one here at the start. And we had one question in particular about the best kind of way to start with fountain pens, fountain pen for a newbie. What would be your like snippet advice to a fountain pen starter?
All right, so I will first of all say that I'm so excited. First of all, she came to us, your planner pals, to ask that question. I would say that if you're just getting into fountain pens, the best thing for you to do is to find like a good medium starter pen. And I would say that's in a budget anywhere between 15 to say like $50. Let's put it in there because there are really good pens that are a lot less expensive that write really nicely. But find yourself a nice extra fine or fine pen. Those are probably a very common one to find, and pick out one standard ink. Go black. Just start with black ink and use that pen for a little bit and get used to filling that pen and practicing with that pen, getting messy with that pen, because that's what's going to give you that practice and that confidence to start exploring a little bit more to find out what you like. So I always recommend the extra fine or fine because that kind of falls into that 0.35 millimeter, 0.5 millimeters, kind of almost like fine to medium inside of there. But that's what we're used to. So don't get into like anything extra fancy or far away from that just yet. And just find a pen that you think is interesting looking, maybe a color that you like, but don't go crazy and buy a really expensive one at first. I think that's really where you start to find what you like and start to play around with a little bit. I would say some really great recommendations, even if you don't want to, like get into anything you have to fill, like the Pilot Kunos are really cool. They're just a little plastic pen. It comes with a cartridge. You pop it in, but it is a fountain pen that you get to use. So that gets you kind of right into it. We talked in our previous episode about fountain pens. TWSBI makes a really good, just kind of like medium-sized pen. There's nothing to take apart. You just stick your pen in it, and it has a little twist on the end, and it sucks the ink up inside of it. And it's just very kind of like low maintenance, and then go and use it. So find something easy, then start to build out your collection from there. I actually just got 3 pens today, Jess, that I'm very excited about. So I'm not going to talk about them now, though.
Well, what? I don't get to have any 2 cents in this, but if I was allowed to have 2 cents in fountain pendom, it would be get your friend to buy it for you. Get your best planner pal to buy you your first fountain pen.
That's right. And I liked your pen so much that I actually got it in this really cool blue color. So, yeah, get a friend to buy it. Ask a friend if you don't know, find a friend, or you always have us. We're always here for you if you have any questions about fountain pens.
Mark more than Jess because she doesn't know what she's doing.
You know what? I'm just happy that you still have it and that you use it sometimes. That just makes me happy.
Yes, it has a pride spot in my pencil case, which means that it's obviously very special because not everything gets to be in the everyday pencil case, even though I like don't use it very often because it's got like green ink in it and I don't really use that in my planner. I like writing with it, getting it out, admiring it, putting it back. Like that's the main kind of gist of it being in my pencil case.
Well, we have to get you to clean out that ink, Jess. It's been a few months. And I think it's time for you just to get some black ink and fill it up so you actually use it.
Yeah, but then you gave me the platinum black one and everyone's like, it's gonna stain your pen, don't put it in there. And I'm just like, I'm so worried now.
I just cleaned out my pen that had the platinum black in it for months. It did not stain my pen. So you'll be okay. Or buy another black ink. I have 100,000. I can send you more samples if you want.
I don't even know where to keep my regular samples. We also had some questions about like how to store supplies, and I'm just like, I am not your person because I swear my system is very flawed.
We'll figure it out. I've got 1,000 different ways to do the same thing because I keep finding new ideas too. All right, so let's go ahead and ask this next question. This is one I feel like we hear all the time, Jess, and I'll let you answer this one first. The question is, name the top reason why you think people who have tried the bullet journal method say that it doesn't actually work for them.
I think that probably one of the big reasons for people would probably be because they're trying to like mimic what they see online without putting in the thought of like whether it is actually something that's going to work with them or resonate with them. Like if you're kind of going into bullet journaling just thinking like it's all about the artistry of it and making beautiful layouts and all of that, That's not to say that your journal can't look that way, but if you're going in with like, this is how it has to look, then that can kind of lead to like bullet journal burnout almost, just feeling like, oh, what's the point? Like spending all of this time, effort, energy, setting up these beautiful and elaborate spreads and they're not using them. So I think that my big one would probably be people not necessarily setting up their journal in a way that works for them. That kind of makes sense. What would be your thought on that one?
I don't know if I made this up. I feel like I did, but maybe someone else said it before I did. This idea of working in your planner and making it work for you versus you feeling like you have to work for your planner, or in this case, a bullet journal. I feel like we get so caught up in the way that the rules are set out with bullet journaling that you feel like if you don't follow it exactly how it's been written, exactly how it's been kind of laid out there, or how others might use it, that therefore you're doing it wrong. And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by that. They put a lot of pressure on themselves to do that. It's kind of the other side of that pendulum, though, is people who don't follow it at all and kind of have this chaos journal in a way where you don't know the rules. So I think a really big part of it really is like learning the rules and following the process and then finding out how it works best for you versus feeling like you always have to like fit the mold of somebody or something else.
Yeah, it could also be in part just like that system doesn't work for them because no planning system is going to be like 100% one size fits all type of a deal. Some people just prefer to have things in a pre printed planner. I mean, like you can bullet journal in a pre printed planner. Like if you can bullet journal in any notebook, then why not one with lines in it? Whatever. But I think that thinking about like other planning systems that are out there and available, some of them are just going to gel better with like the way that people like to structure their lives, their days, how they like to plan, how accessible they like to have things, any of that kind of stuff. So it could possibly be that the style just doesn't really work for them and there's something else out there that does. Alrighty, another bullet journal related question we have is how do you deal with something kind of taking up more space than you allowed for it?
This happens a lot to me, especially with lettering, because I'll start where I'm like, I have all this space. And then you get to like the last four letters and you're like, there's not enough space here for this. So something that I do, which I will just take a creative license here, is I'll just drop the last few letters to the second line and it looks artsy on the page. I think that something I do often, though, to make sure that doesn't happen to me is I usually use a pencil and kind of mark things out on my page first, especially if it's overly intricate or if I know I'm using a certain size stamp or something like that. I want to make sure it's going to fit well, because if I start stamping before I plan it out and doesn't fit, I'm not going to be a happy camper. So I really try to avoid it when I can, but it still happens to me. So I just take a little creative license and do something creative with the space. If I have more space than I need, then I'll put like a sticker or just color in a square or something and be like, it's meant to be here. How about yourself?
So I guess it depends on what kind of like angle we're coming from here. So if it's like about like titles or decoration or anything like that, just like you said, pencil first, the way to go. If you're thinking more about like you've, I don't know, set up a collection page or something and you're adding all of your entries and then you get to the last couple entries and there's not space for it in there, I kind of have two options for that. One of them is if there's only a small number of stuff that needs to be added, it doesn't really warrant setting up a whole nother page for it. And that would be something like a tip in, which is effectively just like a separate piece of paper that you stick in on one side. It makes like a little door or kind of flap that you can have on that layout, add a bit of extra information, which is always very handy. The other option would literally just be setting up another page for it. Like if I feel like there are going to be many, many more entries that I want to make to this collection, if I have a lot of more thoughts to kind of like write down about that, then I will just turn to the next available page in the notebook and set it up there. What you can then do to make it so that it's easy to find that layout is something that they call threading, which is effectively at the bottom of the first layout, write down the page number for the next instance of that collection. Like, where is the next place you should look in your notebook to find the rest of those entries?
Super smart tips there. Tip ins. Ooh, see what I did there? All right, let's get into our next question here. This one is for you, Jess, and I think that you're best to answer this question because I've actually never planned beyond the week that I'm actually currently doing. So this question is, how do you expend excess creative energy? This person specifically will set up a bullet journal spread way too far in advance, and then it makes them sad when they get there. I don't know if they're just not as creatively fulfilled with it, or they're like, oh, it's already done, therefore, like, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that. Especially if you're kind of like, it's going to be a busy season or something and you want to get into your planner early and set things up. And I know that we have some people in the community who are setting up like months in advance. People who around April, like, oh yeah, I'm working on December and stuff. And I'm just like, wow, okay, dedication. Typically speaking, for that kind of like creative energy, creative outlet, I typically would try to find something outside of bullet journaling for that. So for me and my friends, that's usually like event planning. So we'll plan like a reading retreat day or something where we can kind of expend some creative energy into that, or maybe host a cocktail evening that's themed or something like that. That's a lot of fun. If you want to keep it paper based though, my biggest way to expend the extra energy is YouTubing because I make a whole bunch of layouts all the time just to feature on the channel, and they're not there for me to actually use. Like, we recently had a video that was 100 different things you can put into your reading journal, and I am certainly not going to be using all of those, but I like to set them up so people actually have an example that they can play around with. A lot of my time, effort, energy creatively goes into that. So that's one way to do it. I guess you could also get into like card making, like it's kind of, or scrapbooking. They're like adjacent kind of things. There's still paper crafting, still use a lot of supplies that you probably already have, but they don't necessarily take up space in your bullet journal and don't get you to that point where you've set up a month, like many, many months in advance, and now you don't really like or kind of gel with what you've got in there.
I really like that idea of having that. You call it an R&D journal, and I call it the same thing as well, which I love, but it's a journal where you kind of plan out and try out things before you bring it into your regular bullet journal. I think it's a really great way to be creative and be open and less constrained, feeling like it has to be perfect, because the purpose of it is to be messy. So I really love that idea. Even if you don't create a YouTube channel on it, having an extra notebook. We all have extra notebooks. Great use of time and that creative energy too. It's a really good one.
All have extra notebooks. What are you talking about? I have no extra notebooks.
Jess, I think you actually surpassed me in your last video. You did a count. I've been really good about not buying anymore. I just keep getting them as part of like subscription boxes and like Halloween boxes and stuff. Whenever Art Journal puts out a new collection, I need at least one of them. But yeah, you've now surpassed me. So congratulations. I'm no longer the weirdo hoarder of notebooks. You are.
No, reigning champion. Probably not. There are probably other people out there who have a wider notebook collection than me, but one literally just arrived in the mail today as well, and it's so pretty, but it is also an LT 1917, so it's probably just going to be a shelf trophy. But that's fine. It's gorgeous. Another bullet journaling question we have was, what do you think the best way to start bullet journaling is, and how to develop your creativity with it? What are your tips, Mark?
Absolutely. So my best tip is the best way to start bullet journaling is just to start bullet journaling. So I kind of mentioned in that previous question is learn the rules, understand the method and how it works, and set up a bullet journal. And I think the most important thing, and in the new bullet journal notebooks, they have a page dedicated to this now. And at first I was kind of like, I don't think I like this, but I love it now. What is your intention for this notebook? What are you trying to achieve? And what are you trying to do in that? So for myself, as a great example, is when I started my very first bullet journal, I knew that I wanted to work on three main things. The first is I wanted to work on my handwriting because I was really trying to find a style that I liked. And I've always loved like architects' handwriting, which is basically in all caps. And my dad actually wrote in all caps growing up. And I didn't know that I could write in all caps because you're always told in school to write a certain way. So I gave myself permission to do it. And I've loved doing it. It was very weird to get started, but now I can't write in regular sentence case anymore. It doesn't work. I also wanted to focus on grids. I have a design background and I really love grids and layout. And especially with bullet journaling, it made a lot of sense. So understanding different ways that I could work on the page, set up different boxes and make that work out. That was really important for me. And the third thing was also just finding ways to do that to support work. So I use my bullet journal almost exclusively for work every single day, every single week. And I needed it to work for that reason. And I was able to really build my own look and feel and needs over time. And it is almost kind of like a template in a way. Now I have specific things that I need on my pages and I'll add extra stuff in, but that was my goal. So I think finding something that you want to work on or improve on, specifically creatively, if you want to try to get into more hand lettering or you want to try different colors or materials, like give yourself kind of a challenge in a way to use certain tools and get used to them and find fun ways to do that. And then that way you have a functional bullet journal because you understand what's happening, but you also get to add in those little bits of creativity and have fun with it as well.
No, I would agree with that. I like the idea of starting with purpose first. Like that's something that I very much believe in, whether it be for, journaling or effectively any kind of endeavor. But I like the idea in terms of like developing creatively is kind of leaning a little bit into mimicry. Now we kind of touched on this before. We shouldn't necessarily mimic exactly what we see in other people's journals. Otherwise, you end up with a gratitude log with somebody else's partner's name on it. Anyways, but in terms of like those creative kind of styles that you see online and stuff, if that's kind of part of your purpose for journaling is to be creative, develop your creativity, leaning into a little bit of kind of like copy, artistic copying can be a really good way to up your skills. Can be a very good way to get comfortable with different kind of designs rather than trying out of the kind of like, very first page, reinvent the wheel and find yourself in creativity and all of that. I've watching somebody at some point who said like, one of the creative projects that they did was to redraw the same thing every single day until they found their creative style. Not necessarily saying that you want to do the exact same thing on every single page of your notebook, but because that kind of process of finding your own style with your creativity can take a lot of time when you're just starting out, a good way to go about it is just to kind of copy what you see online.
All right, Jess. So our next question is coming from our good friend Julia. Julia here, or Vala Vanity, depending where you're looking at her on social media. Her question is, what has been the most unexpected part of your planner stationery journey?
That I made it my career, probably. When I first started, that wasn't really the expectation. But yeah, because when I first started, it was just trying to organize teacher life and getting everything done in all the different areas of life and stuff. And I did not expect when I started that it would become my full-time job.
I just had to say, first of all, I love that it has become that. I think most people who start with bullet journaling in this creative content creation space, that's always something people ask. And it's just like, oh, when are you going to do that full time? And I'm always just very happy for you that you did it because I know it doesn't always work for everyone, but I don't think you could mentally allow that to happen. And you just do such a good job at it. So I think that my most unexpected part of this journey so far, honestly, has been the opportunity to go to a planner conference and host a thing, and people like know who I am. So Go Wild this year was an amazing thing, not just from the fact that I went, also being sponsored by Zebra USA and like going there with them and creating this and like meeting people and doing all of that. Never in my life did I think I'd be like, hey, I have to take off work because I'm being sponsored by a company to go to a planner conference to like talk about this thing that I just do every day regardless. So that for me has been the most amazing thing. I think about it all the time. Every day I have my little meet Mark for Mark Your Pages thing that was on the table when I had my meet and greet. And every day I smile and I look at it. I'm just like, damn, that happened.
Yeah, I was scrolling back through Instagram the other day for I don't even know what reason, and got to the picture of you at the booth or the table at the top, like telling us about the new pens and stuff, and it looks like you're DJing and whatever, just having the time of your life. It was great. It was a great experience getting to be there, like not just for you, but also kind of for you. Like, I was very proud mama moment for anybody who wasn't there and didn't see me. I was like down the bottom, like the lady from Mean Girls, like, like recording, taking the pictures, being like living my best life. It was really cool.
No, I'm so grateful that you did that because, we are teams of one. We don't have an assistant. We don't have anyone else. So we really do rely on each other in real life to be like, hey, can you record this for me? Because I'm up here doing a thing. Like, I can't do it myself like I usually do.
Yeah, just like pause and be like, guys, I just need to whip my phone out to record some content. Like, can you just wait a second? Yeah.
Everything is content. Everything is content.
So this one was kind of a cool question because it was like a marrying of bullet journaling and fountain pen kind of stuff. But I'm going to read it word for word, so bear with me. If your bullet journal was a fountain pen, which ink and pen body would you have?
That's a really fun question. So my fountain pen, and I don't have one of these in my collection yet, but there are fountain pens that are like really, really wide, like really thick boys. Everything I have is like very small and like a regular fountain pen, but there are some just like monster ones. I feel like that would be my bullet journal because I always have like a square bullet journal, or I really fall in love with like B5, like these bigger journals now. So like that would be it. My ink would be a black, blue, green color shift, a magical ink that just kind of switches between colors depending on my mood. I really love black ink just because that's just a beautiful thing to have on page, but I also really fallen in love with like green inks recently as well over the past year, and I just love the way they look and it works out so well. So if I could like mix both of those things together in a way that like allowed it to easily like give a little bit of ink at a time and look really cool on the page, I think that would perfectly describe my bullet journal, my pen, which is going to be a thick boy, and then this weird cool mixing of inks. So how about you, Jess?
If it couldn't be Iris because she's beautiful, she's gorgeous, she's the moment, all right. If it could not be her, then I'd need something that was like a dark purple kind of color. I think in terms of like the pen body, medium nib because it seems to be the middle of the pitch, and that's kind of what A5 is, like the average. And I think that in terms of the ink, it would be like a kind of dark purple, but dark to the point of almost being black. And it would have to have some kind of like shimmer in it, maybe holographic. I don't know if that even exists, but that's what it would be.
Seriously, I've thought about custom making inks. Well, not custom making inks, but custom mixing inks and trying to do that. I don't know how to do that, but I will figure it out and I'll make you a perfect color shifting ink and find you a purple pen. That's easy to do. All right. I'm going to ask you this question, Jess, even though it was supposed to be me answering this, because I want to know your perspective on this because I don't know if my recollection is actually correct. This is a great question. And it was absolutely love the podcast. I want to know how you two met. It just seems like you've been BFFs forever.
The reason I assigned this to you is because like I couldn't remember.
I do remember, so I have an answer to this, but I want to know what yours is.
The reason that we met, in theory, was because somebody set up a group chat in the way back wins of Instagram, where engagement pods were like more of a thing, kind of a thing. Effectively, you just get a bunch of your friends who are kind of in the same niche, or maybe not even, add them all to a chat, and then anytime somebody posted a photo, or like, yeah, it would have been a photo, there were no videos back then, reels, what is that? But anytime you posted, you'd share it to that group, and then everybody in the group would go and jump onto that picture and give it engagement. It was kind of like one of the hacks, quote, quote, back in the day for being able to grow your engagement. We didn't really use it for that so much. I think that was kind of like the start off intention, and then it just became like just general bants and chill. But I think that in terms of actually like becoming friends, it was probably Erica's fault. I think. Yeah, and Erica, if you don't know her, is Crafternated. She's in Instagram, YouTube. She's a very good planner friend as well. She's a hoot. We love her. But I think that she was really the reason that I kind of probably started interacting with you more. Am I wrong?
Were you in that engagement pod at first? I don't remember if you were or not. You were.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. So there's an example
Not
of like
memorable, my feeling.
no, so let me tell you why I don't remember it, because I was at that point an itty bitty little tiny bullet journal account, right? I don't even know, under 5,000, maybe only 2,000, maybe not even 1,500. I just remember it was like walking into a room of celebrities. That's how it felt to me. I was in this room with all these other bullet journal accounts that had 25, 30, 40, 75,000 followers. And I was like, I'm sorry, why am I like, I'm here because I don't really know. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, I have to perform. It was a mess. And I'm like a chatty Cathy. So like we were asking other things. I was getting to know people as I do. And then eventually the people who were a part of that engagement chat were like, I think we need to have a separate one. And then they moved it to the side or whatever else. But Erica was another one that like you guys were friends or chatting more. And then somehow we got connected. And then I think it was just like, Jess is actually really cool. And she has the same weird sense of humor that I do. That's why I think we vibe so well. I'm going to add Jess to this other really crazy chat that we have too. I think he had fit in well here. And it was just, that was just something that just worked. And then from there, it's funny because I've always remember seeing your content, obviously being on YouTube. You were like one of the top YouTubers that I was following at the time as well. And like seeing how you were doing things on Instagram and YouTube and all of that too. So it was very interesting to me because I was just like, this girl's a celebrity. Like she's really like has this huge cult following, and oh my gosh. And then from there, I think once I got over the celebrity starstruckness of it, and I was like, Jess is just a really cool, fun person, and I absolutely love her personality. It's so fun. We're gonna be friends. And then from there, it's just been building on that ever since. Just doing more stuff together and actually getting to meet each other when I did my little stop by at the DC Go Wild, and then just knowing that you were going to be at the Dallas one too, and like that whole fun thing. It's been awesome. And then yeah, I don't know if there's a question on here about how we got this podcast started, but essentially I had my other podcast I was doing by myself, and that was very lonely. And Jess was a guest, my first and only guest on the Hobbyist Hangout podcast. And everyone was like, you guys, this just works. I love the banter. I love the chatting. And then I was just like, I can't keep up on my own. It's a lot to do a podcast by yourself. And I was like, Jess would be a really cool person to do this with. Like, I was just telling Jess right before we started this one that her brain works a little bit differently than mine in the best ways. I've always had people in my life where I'm kind of like, over here, ideas, things like in the moment. And then I have another really good friend that's like, okay, Mark, let's go ahead and organize that. Let's make a plan on how we're going to execute on that. And I need that in my life. And Jess has always been that person. So I'm very thankful that you still want to work with me in this capacity after all this time. But it's always just been a super cool thing. It just works.
Is this the awkward moment where I say I'm leaving, goodbye? Like, no.
This is actually our last podcast together because Jess is sick of my crap.
Well, I loved it to go wild. Anytime people are like, wow, Mark's so cool. Like, I wish my partner was so supportive of my hobbies and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you need to ask his wife because she probably wouldn't say the same shit. She's like, he's a menace.
Yeah, very annoyed by me being like, hey, I have to go record a random podcast I don't get paid for and go record some YouTube videos.
See, thankfully Vogel doesn't mind. He's just like, hey, I'm going to be having a meeting at this time today. Is that okay? I'm like, no, I'm recording the podcast. You must reschedule. Okay, I didn't tell him to reschedule his meeting, but still. I heard him like sneaking out of his office because we started like a half hour before I told him we were going to. And he's just like, sorry, like sneaking away. But it's nice to hear how you kind of remember the journey of our friendship. I feel like I need to scroll back all the way back in the chat and figure out how these things went down because my memory does not serve me well.
Doesn't matter. The big thing is that we got to where we are now and we're killing it. That's all that matters.
Keeping on the topic of Planner Pals, we did have a question as to whether we were ever going to have a Planner Pals meetup. What do you reckon?
I mean, I would love to. I just don't know how, when, like any of those things. Like Jess lives on the other side of the world from me. Literally, it is tomorrow, my time for her right now. It would have to be at some type of event or something. And I feel like we'd have to mix it in to something like Go Wild or something like that. You know, if we got like sponsored from a podcast perspective to go do a thing, I would love to do something like that. Or do what you did at this last one. You planned a whole separate meetup outside of all of that on your own, and people came and hung out with you. I mean, maybe we could do something like that. But other than that, I really honestly don't know how else in the hell we would ever make that happen.
Oh, I don't even know who it was. It was some brand who reached out to me a little bit ago saying like, oh, hey, we want to, plan a travel experience for you and your followers, community, whatever. I'm like, it sounds really cool, but I was just like, I'm not in the right headspace to do this right now. I have so many other things going on. Please hold, caller. But I've been tempted to go back to them and be like, okay, so like logistically, what would that look like? Because maybe we could plan like a planner retreat type thing. I don't know what locations they offer. I don't know what packages they offer. I have no idea about anything at all, but it sounds cool. So maybe one day, je ne sais pas. But yeah, probably between now and then, it would just be like anytime if I manage to make it to Go Wild and you're there as well, just like a little side gig type thing. Like, hey guys, we're gonna meet at this eatery and hang out for a bit. Come along if you're in the area.
I mean, we technically could do something with this podcast if we wanted to. I know that the platform that we use allows for audience members. So I don't know if anybody would want to deal with our unedited version of us talking and going through this podcast because there's a lot of editing that we do on the back end. But I mean, that could be something too. If we want to do something virtually, maybe that could be a great first step. I don't know.
I love it when people ask, like, oh, when do these podcasts go live? And I'm like, they are not live for a very good reason. The editing is necessary.
Yeah, when we talk about how much we edit ourselves in our YouTube video, imagine having a back and forth conversation with somebody and talking about random subjects that you haven't scripted out necessarily, like we do for our videos.
Yep, quite a time. And it's like, what, in terms of the actual recording of the podcast, we give ourselves like an hour or something. Very often we go over, like pretty much every single time, this time included. And then after that, it's like, trim it all down. Okay, now it's 45 minutes. It's more manageable. But yeah, I don't think anybody would, well, there's probably somebody who would get a kick out of seeing the unedited version, but I don't think that that's necessarily something we're going to do at this stage.
Let us know in the comments and feedback. Like if that's something you would like. I mean, if people want it, I'll give it to them. Just gotta plan
Give
it
the
out.
people what they want.
All right, this is another kind of bullet journal planning question, and we've gotten this a good amount. I think I actually did a video on this one myself, and you probably have as well. And the question is, how do you get over a journal rut, especially when you're bored with your bullet journal and you just don't want to keep using it because you don't like it?
Part of the reason that I struggle with ruts so much is because I'm stubborn. like, and oftentimes, if I'm in a journal rut, it's usually like middle of the month or like possibly even the start of a month. And I've already set up my kind of, start of month pages and stuff, and I've established my theme. And I'm the kind of person who likes to have the same theme throughout the month. Took me a while to get there, but I like it when things are matchy, samey kind of a thing. So then, if I'm feeling kind of rutted, is that a word? It probably doesn't mean what I think it does. Whatever. If I'm in a rut, like, oh no! Like, don't use words that you don't understand. You will make a fool of yourself. But if I am in a rut and it's the middle of a month, usually I just grin and bear it until the next month. Not necessarily the best way to actually get the most of your journaling, both in terms of like, I don't know, purpose and joy, which sometimes is the same thing. But sometimes, if need be, I will just start again, like make the month again. If especially it's the start of the month and things just aren't vibing, I will scrap what I've done and start over. The thing is like I'm not too precious nowadays about using up pages in my journal if they like don't get completed or filled out or whatever, because like if you haven't noticed, I have quite a few notebooks, so I'm not going to run out of space. But I know that's not necessarily viable for everybody to do, but any kind of workshopping you can do to make it so that there's just a little bit more joy in the process. If part of the rut is because you're finding it's just too hard to keep up with, and maybe simplifying, that kind of a thing. A lot of it is just giving yourself the kind of like leniency and flexibility to say like, hey, this isn't my best month, but I'm going to do what I can with it, is really all that I could probably say to that. What do you reckon?
I think that is great advice. I think for myself, and I've been there a number of times over the years. What I found to be most helpful is I kind of do a bit of like a emotional audit of my bullet journal. So I'll go ahead and just identify I'm in a rut. I just don't like it. I'm not enjoying this right now. And I'll go ahead and from the very beginning and I'll just flip through my pages and kind of just be mindful of how I'm feeling as I'm doing that. If I open up something that I really liked and I was like, yeah, that was really cool. Like, I really liked that. And then I go to a different thing. And I was like, oh, no, not like that. I mean, you can even keep a little scratch piece of paper on the side if you want to and write it down. It's just identifying what is it about this right now that is not working for me, that's making me feel this way. So that question before, if you've planned months in advance and then you get there and you just feel creatively unfulfilled, don't plan that far in advance, or maybe plan a skeleton and then add your creativity on top of it at that moment, what you're feeling. Honestly, that's why I do weekly spreads this way, is because I love the variety of change of different pens or inks or stamps or stickers or whatever I'm into in that moment. Hello, adult ADHD. Like, that's just how it works for me. And I think that's what makes it really exciting. And if at any point I just really don't love it, I just take that moment. So that would be my best advice, is just understand what is making you feel that way and find what brings you joy and start doing that instead.
I think that, like we kind of mentioned before, while purpose is something I believe in a lot, reflection is another one. So it's exactly like you said, taking kind of an audit of what's working, what's not. Why is a really good question. Very powerful. Like, why is it that you're in a rut? Is it because things are too hard? Is it because life is actually crazy frantic right now and you just need to simplify the heck out of everything to keep up? It happens. It's cool. And yes, sometimes we go into a month with the best intentions, like, oh, I'm going to be really decorative. I'm going to be using like paints and like inks and like whatever else and stuff. And then you get into the throes of actual life, quote, quote, and it's just not going to work out that way. It's all right to take some time to reevaluate and adjust to make sure that you can use your journal in a way that's actually going to fulfill the purpose that you gave it. Alrighty, we've got a related question. What is it that would have to kind of like happen to make you move to a new journal, like without the journal actually being finished? What would be kind of like the deciding factor that would say like, nope, I'm done with this journal, I'm moving to another one?
I would have to have fallen into a pool and been completely waterlogged and the ink completely just all over the place in a mess and the book unusable. I've gotten to a point now that I do not care about the point in the year in which I switch my journal. I know that sounds weird. Some people probably are gasping as they're listening to this, but I don't care. For me, it's all about effectively and efficiently using my notebooks. It's about getting to a point where I can look at it and say, okay, I have 10 more pages or however many more pages left. What do I have to add to this, or what might I need? And if that's not enough space, then I'll make the transition. I will say though, like, my current bullet journal, I think I maybe have about, I want to say 25 to 30 pages left. And I know that I'm creeping ever so closely to the beginning of a new year. And I'm already thinking about like what's next, because I know that's going to come very quickly for me. If I run out of pages before the new year, I will add some pages, because I will not move over to a brand new book for like a month. That I can't. I will do a different thing. But if it's like 2, 3, 4 months, I just go into it. I don't wait. So yeah, major planner travesty drowning would be what would make me do that. How about yourself?
I feel like there's like a myriad of reasons. While yours is like it has to be like a natural disaster, the journal is dead, there's no chance of resuscitation. Mine's like the journal looked at me wrong. It's Tuesday. Stop it. No, I think that for me, it really depends on the circumstances. Like, there's nuance to everything. One of them would be like if the journal is just not working, like whether it be because like the paper isn't the kind of paper I like, or if it's because the purpose that I set up the journal for isn't really kind of working. For instance, like I've had a social media journal previously, and I found that despite best intentions, I didn't use it. Actually, that one's a double one. I set it up in the middle of another journal I had because I was trying to repurpose that journal. And I was like, yep, got all my pages set up. This is going great. Got halfway through a month and I'm like, I hate this being in the middle of a journal. I'm going to start a new one. So I started a new one and used that for about 2 months, and then was like, yep, this isn't working either because it's apart from all of the kind of like day-to-day tasks and stuff. So that's two instances. I don't really hold myself back from starting a new journal while Mark is out here trying to use every single page up. Good for you. Excellent idea. Mine's more just like any journal that I don't use to completion will just get turned into an R&D journal anyways. So it will get used, but it doesn't have to get used right now. So I don't really hold myself back from switching out of a journal if it's not working for any which what reason.
I think a lot of mine, because I'm this way, is because when I first started bullet journaling, I was very frugal. I didn't want to spend a lot on notebooks. I thought it was ridiculous that a notebook costs more than $20, and here I am
I
buying.
mean, I still feel that way, eh?
I mean, I get you talked about it earlier, Jess, and you're absolutely right. Like, we have a lot of journals. We both have been on the Archer and Olive teams before. They send us a lot of stuff. We also buy a lot of our own stuff. I think when you find something that you like and you want to stick with it or collect it or do whatever, then you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna get it. But it is one of those things, though, where I just was like, oh my gosh, I got to use every single page of this because it's going to cost me another $20 to buy a new notebook or whatever it might be. So I'm getting the most out of this. And I just can't kick that feeling.
No, that's very fair. I think that, like you kind of said, at the start, I was a lot more frugal, like really trying to get all of the life out of a journal that I could. But nowadays, with the number of journals that I get sent, because, like, as we've talked about, this is my job. So I do get sent a lot of notebooks. I have such a back catalog that it's very kind of like low risk to start a new journal. Like, if it's going to spark more joy moving into something else, if it's just like I need like a change up, or if it's the purpose isn't aligned with what's happening in the journal, then I just don't hold myself back from it.
All right, this next question will start with you, Jess. This is an interesting one because I've thought about this myself, actually, and I don't know how I would approach it. So I'll think about it more while you answer it. What's the easiest way to personalize a planner when you use a regimented one or kind of a pre planned one? This person mentioned coming back to Franklin, Happy Planners, Erin Condren, Daytimer, etc. So curious if you've ever done this before, and if not, what your recommendations might be to personalize something like that.
Yeah, I know that a lot of pre-printed planners from like bigger planner brands, they do have sticker sets that you can get and stuff to customize. I know that adds a lot of chonk to the journal, so that would definitely be one way to do it, especially if you don't mind the chonkiness of a journal that has a lot of stickers in it. If stickers aren't really your vibe, then things like washi tape and, like, I don't know, stickers outside of kind of like the planner space also exist. But if you're going for something quite simple, I guess you can effectively just like dedicate some of the space in the pre-printed structure to be for decoration. Maybe that's just like in a vertical layout, the bottom or the top, and like alternate or something. If you're going with horizontal, it's just like one side of it is for decoration or whatnot. You can probably find safe stamps and inks and stuff to use in that. You can do doodles and whatever else. But the easiest way to change it up is probably just like different pen colors. And that's probably be the way that I would do it. I found that when I was using a pre-printed planner, I wasn't really focused on the kind of like decorative side of things. So I wasn't sticking in like drawn stickers or like doodle kind of stickers or anything like that. It was more so my stickers were functional, and the main kind of creativity element just came from color paletting and stuff. What do you reckon?
I think that I would have to go that same way, especially as someone who has dabbled more with stamps and stickers and 100,000 different pens. The only ever planner that I ever used that was kind of pre-printed, meaning like it had a specific kind of goal, was like this action planner I tried before I tried bullet journaling. I've used other pre-printed dated journals and stuff like that before. I think for myself, though, it was very functional. Like it had a specific purpose. I wasn't worried about designing anything inside of them because they were there for the calendar and the dates. However, if I were to ever fully move into one of those or try those, I should give myself the challenge actually and try it one time. I think I would just lean heavier into the stamps and the stickers as ways to kind of add to it. But you made a really good point when you said like safe stamps for those, because a lot of the times a pre-made planner doesn't have great paper. So I'm so used to using Archer and Olive notebooks so I can stamp on a page and not see through the other side. But some of these other ones, paper's not that awesome, or it's Tomoe River paper and it's already thin. So I'd have to be okay with the ghosting, and I'm already holding myself because I'm like, I really don't like ghosting, and I don't know if I can make that work.
No, I think that what you said about it being a challenge, that'd be a fun way to do the rest of your year, especially if you wanted to like start a new journal with a new year. Maybe like, how would I use a pre-printed planner, or like how to use a pre-printed planner for bullet journaling or whatever. Because like we mentioned before, you can totally use a pre-printed planner for bullet journaling because the method just relies on a notebook. And why not a notebook with lines?
And collection pages and core collection pages and a notebook and a pen.
So a question that got me maybe too excited than I should be, because I've already spent some time thinking in this space, but it was, are you guys already preparing your journals for 2025? Could you give us some spoilers for them?
Ooh, so I have, because I've been going back and forth and have to keep reminding myself that I have a journal that I created with Archer and Olive that has special smart marks and pages and a design that I've been dying to use. So my plan is to use my B5 sized mark journal that I partner with Archer and Olive on. And I still think it's available if anybody wants to buy it. And I'm just really excited about it because it's something that I designed and I built in the smart marks on purpose, and I'm going to use them and talk about it more. I also have been dabbling with a few other different type of journals and planners. I'm going to continue to use my workout journal that I've been using. I just put out a video about how I created that. It's working very well for me with a purpose and a goal and a thing to do. And even though I talked about not using workout trackers and weight trackers and how they failed us in the last episode, this one is working and I'm so happy about it. I'm very happy about it. The other thing that I'm really excited to continue to do is actually these UgMonk, this they call it an analog card, and I've been using this for the past few weeks and I absolutely love them. I've talked before and I made a video about how I set up this desk bullet journal for myself, and I just haven't really been using it, to be honest with you, just because it was kind of, I thought I was going to do more with it than not. I've been using these now, and it's like, why else do I need anything in my entire life? Honestly, you put the top things you want to do this day, and if it doesn't work out, you migrate them to the next day, and it's working really well for me. So I'm excited to be doing that. Not that that's really a planner, more of a system that I've been doing. And that's kind of, as of this moment in time, that's what I think I'm doing. But anything could change between now and the end of the year. But since you've been thinking about it, Jess, what's on your mind for 2025?
So I'm gonna have an everyday journal, which is like this guy that gets all of the kind of day-to-day plans, monthly setups, all of that kind of thing. So that's happening. We're gonna have a reading journal. The structure of it's gonna change a little bit. I'm thinking of going to more like monthly setups and monthly reading challenges and things, so that should be fun. I'm thinking of taking my long-term collections journal and actually retiring it to bring in two new journals. One of them would be like the new edition of the long-term collection, so that's like reference materials that you want to keep for longer than just the life of one journal. And then the other kind of part of that would be a dedicated swatch journal, because I just feel like there are some pen sets in there that like I'm not really using, I've gotten rid of, so that I don't really need to have the reference of them there anymore. So maybe setting up a smaller journal for that. We're also going to continue with the goals journal. That one's working well. We're going to continue with the yearly collections journal. That one's fine. What else? Brainstorming book, R&D journals, all 6 of them, because there's a few on the go. And then I think that's probably about it. I haven't necessarily decided like which notebooks I'm going to be using for them yet. I know that like the swatching journal, I probably want maybe a B6. For the everyday journal, I want either a square or an A5. But outside of the ones that are kind of like continuing from this year already, I haven't specifically decided which ones I'm going to be using.
That'll be super exciting. So you have to keep your eyes open for Jess's videos over on YouTube as she's making these selections and doing them. I think this will be the first year when I'm going to be talking more about that overall process. People seem to be very interested in that. I'm still be doing a bullet journal setup just because, like I said, I've already know that my notebook will end in time for that, and I'm going to set up a mark journal anyway. But to talk about some different ways to do it too, I don't count like my R&D journals or anything else like that. I have them, but I guess I'm just not using them enough where I'm like, oh yeah, that's a specific journal. It's just like, oh, I need to do a thing, grab the journal I've already been using off the page though. But I like that you have them all separated out.
Yeah, no, if I don't keep track of them, then they either don't get used to completion, or like I can't remember which one was which or which ideas are in which one. Because on the go at the moment, I have four R&D journals. One of them I needed to set up because the other ones were too full and the idea video wasn't going to fit into it. So it like needed to be in its own journal. And then other ones like are kind of specific use cases. Like one of them has really thin pages, so I use that for anything that's kind of like cheap, quick and dirty kind of a thing. One of them has like all of the kind of like very simple bullet journal kind of stuff in it. So it's like, hey, if you're going back to like the very basics, the lore as passed down by Mr. Ryder Carroll himself, then that journal is like dedicated to just those kind of layouts. But then the other two are more so like, hey, thick paper notebooks that we can just do kind of, what I'm going to call like regular ideas in, ones that are a little bit more decorated, a little bit more akin to what my usual kind of planning is. But going to try and use up at least one of them before the end of the year so I don't have to carry all 4 of them over to next year.
All right, Jess. Well, we have a ton more questions actually. So this will be the first time that I think we'll ever have to do this with the video. Instead of going on for like another hour, we'll go ahead and split this into a part 2 video. So we'll have another video that comes out answering all the rest of the questions because there are so many more that we didn't get to tonight. But it has been amazing to ask these questions from the community. So I hope you all really enjoyed this episode and listening to our back and forth and just amazing questions, like I said, from this community that are really good. And the ones coming up next week are going to be awesome too. I can't wait to get into those.
And of course, we'd love to hear your opinion as well. Have you started thinking about your 2025 planner lineup? I know it's early in the piece for some of us, but technically speaking, if you're like a planner pal, then planner season is here. The releases are coming, if not have already come. What are you thinking about using in the year ahead? Let us know either in the comments, or if you're not here on YouTube, then you can email us at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com.
Well, Jess, like we said, we'll get this part 2 up following this one, and I cannot wait to answer more of those. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, though, Planner Pals. I'll see you